Mariana van Zeller. This is a very interesting woman. She's almost like a outlaw version of Anthony Bourdain, where it's like she's not looking into food, but she's usually looking into drugs and trafficking and all sorts of weird different things like that. This is episode 1938. We're at 12 minutes, 13 seconds, and she's about to talk about her experience with interviewing a chemist who used to make LSD in very, very large amounts. If you don't know anything about that community, there's only about 4 or 5 chemists in the United States who make like the legitimate actual LSD. There's only like 5 of them, if that. Like very, 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 very small community of people. And this guy was one of them, and she talks about her experience with it, and I think it's absolutely amazing. As you know, big advocate of psychedelics therapy, and but respectfully, I'm not the type to take it and go into a concert or anything like that. And this is a very interesting clip, very, very interesting. Let's get it.
Yeah, I would imagine. What did you do this season?
We did Ghost Guns. We did one on LSD, psychedelics. It was my first time ever doing a story on psychedelics. It was a great episode. We basically spent months and months trying to get an interview with an LSD chemist. There's only a few of them out there.
There's only like 5 or 6 in the whole country, which is crazy.
I know.
I just found that out recently.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. And we kept hearing about these hermit chemists who live out in the forests and are hidden. And I mean, we interviewed so many people and talked to so many people to try to get access to. And in the end, it was we got access to a chemist who is no longer a chemist, but it was one of the most powerful interviews we ever did.
So he quit after you interviewed him?
No, he got in trouble. He was an LSD chemist, and he did time in prison, basically, in the UK. And he's American, and he's now living in Montana, and he lives out of school bus in Montana. And it was a really powerful interview because, I spent so much time reporting on drugs and talking to people who do it because of the money. And with psychedelics, we've filmed a lot of people involved in the psychedelics business selling mushrooms and LSD, and not one single one of them was doing it because of the money. They all told us how they were doing it because of the power of the drug and how LSD has changed them and transformed them, and they really believe in the power of the drug in terms of sort of liberating and raising consciousness in the world. And he was one of them. So here I was finally in front of a chemist who spent, years of his life making LSD, and then and he started crying, like bawling, and talking about how, when I asked him, do you know other active chemists out there? And he told me, look, I do, but I would never give you that name because I would take away from them what has been taken away from me. And he starts bawling, talking about what LSD meant for him, what making LSD meant for him, and how he was robbed of his life's meaning. It's really incredible. I was not expecting it.
So he felt like his life's meaning was to provide it.
To provide it and to allow people to experience what he experienced at a young age.
Did you have any preconceived notions when you went into that were dissolved?
Absolutely. Again, I think the financial component. Most people that are involved in drug trafficking or the making of drugs do it because of money. And, I don't use drugs, never have, because I'm afraid of losing control. I've tried weed, of course. I tried hash. One of the episodes we have for the upcoming season is actually about hash because it's the first drug I tried when I was growing up in Portugal.
It's decriminalized in Portugal.
It's decriminalized. Right? Portugal has an amazing success when it comes to drugs. It's pretty cool.
That's part of the problem with illegality, right? When things are illegal, only criminals are selling them, and then law-abiding people are prohibited from taking them.
That's right.
Which is, Terence McKenna once famously said that freedom includes the freedom to explore your own consciousness. And if you deny people that, you're denying them a basic human right.
Yeah.
And I think he's right.
Yeah. I mean, one of the people we interviewed was a former military suffering from PTSD, a young kid who had been in Afghanistan, I believe, Afghanistan. And he was part of the bomb-sniffing crew that goes looking for IEDs. And the car that he was in, actually, there was an IED that exploded under him. But it was all protected, so nothing happened to him. He suffered a concussion and was out for a few minutes and then was rescued, but there was still incoming shooting coming at him. It was like a whole situation, and he was suffering from PTSD. And he told us he was incapable, and he tried everything, all the medication that was available for him by the traditional medical community, and nothing was working. And he says he was having trouble waking up in the morning. He was suffering, again, from PTSD. And then he tried LSD, and it changed. He says it's completely changed his life. And he started doing LSD with a therapist, with somebody that sort of a shaman, I guess, a shaman who like helps him. And we filmed one of his first sessions with a person. He had done it before, but was one of the first sort of guided sessions, and it was fascinating to see. And he's now in school, and I'm not sure if his life is all perfectly fine, but he's doing much better, according to him.
Well, whose life is perfectly fine?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's life.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that is one of the best therapeutic uses of it. And did you speak to anyone at MAPS?
We did, actually, up in Canada, too. We spent time in Vancouver as well. It's big there. We spent time with some people who are using it as therapy. And it was, again, as somebody who hasn't done a lot of work with psychedelics, it was really, really incredible. And I have since microdosed on mushrooms, and I really like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yo, that's sick. How did I miss that part of the clip? I didn't know she said that. Wow. But yeah, man, it's LSD is something really, really, again, I always say when I talk about this stuff, it should be approached with respect and reverence and very professional settings. You know, when I was coming up, it was kind of the Wild West, and you kind of just got what you got and you did what you did. And if you were smart enough to know to have a sitter, then good for you. But most people weren't. And which I was one of those people until I kind of figured that out. But my first time, I'll tell you a little story. My first time taking LSD, I took it. I had this job at Rogers. If you don't know what Rogers is, it's like a phone company. So I had a job. I finally got the job. I go in for my first day. Pretty sure it was my first day of training, and I had acid. So I go and I take some. Now my commute is like 3 hours away. I'm used to psilocybin. You microdose that. You feel it for a little while. It goes away after a few hours, and you're good. So I'm thinking the same thing with this. So I end up taking it, and I go on my commute to work, and it's just buses, train, subway, bigger buses. It was like a long commute, and I'm like 2 hours into the commute. It was like a 3-hour commute. I'm like 2 hours into it, and I'm like, this is just getting very strong. And I was like, I'm going to Google this, because I always have a thing, like, you shouldn't Google stuff, especially when it comes to that, because it's just going to make you all paranoid. But I'm like, how long does this stuff last? And I Google it, and then I see an answer that says like 12 to 16 hours. And I'm like, oh no. So I realized that not only was it getting stronger, I hadn't even peaked yet. So, so I'm on this bus, about to have to go through like a 20-minute walk, and it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the whole time I'm listening to Steve Jobs, and he's talking about the world, and he's giving his commencement speech, and he's talking about making an impact on the universe, and when you poke the world, it comes out on the other side, and it's following your dreams. All this stuff is so beautiful. And I get off the bus and I start walking. It's like a little 15-20-minute walk to get to this place. Long commute. And I'm walking there, and I see some water, and I sit by the water a little bit, just trying to just even out, but it's not working. It's just strong. The water's doing all sorts of things. I can see the math of the water, basically. It's wild. And I get to work, and I'm wired. I'm high, very high. And I'm looking around at people, and people's faces are doing odd things, and not too odd, but odd enough. And I'm really feeling it. And then I see this girl, Tess, great girl. She has blue hair. She had like blue dreadlocks and like tattoos on her hands. So I'm like, she'll get it. She looked like an anime chick. She looked like an anime cartoon person. Like that's what she looked like. So I go to her. I'm like, let me sit beside her. And I think at some point I said to her that I was on it, because she was just like, don't worry. Like I just sat with her and she was kind of like, don't worry, you're good. I'll help you. And I was just good. And then she gave me all the answers to the training that we were doing. And then I got pizza and lunch and all that stuff. And then eventually it calmed down. But like, holy, that first hour at work, it was like, I can't believe I did this to myself. It was so bad. And then I continued doing it for another 20 days. 20 days. And I just kept going into work and stuff. And it ended up being a very therapeutic time for me. I did a lot of listening to Steve Jobs, a lot of listening to all sorts of self-improvement stuff. I sat by the water a lot, and I just thought a lot about life while I was doing this training, and it just really helped. It really helped alleviate and shed some really negative stuff that I had went through in life. And again, I wouldn't say anybody and everybody should do it, but if you're thinking about it, make sure it's the most professional, legal setting that you could possibly be a part of. Do it like that, And if you can't find that, wait until you find that, because when you do, that's when you're going to be able to do some real great therapeutic work for yourself. So, yeah, that's my story with that. It was very, very strong. Very, very strong. And yeah. And there's a cool story of how I got it too, but I'll leave that for another time. Anyway, check this show out. It's called Trafficked. This is Mariana van Zeller, episode 1939. We were at 12 minutes, 21 seconds, and now we are at 17 minutes, 41 seconds. And she goes on a little more about it, and then she goes into some other stuff. Really interesting episode, really interesting woman. Check the show out. Link in the description to the full podcast. Peace.